So this week, and a lot of weeks before, but yesterday and today and all last week, I have called the police department to see how the warrant on the landlord and the investigation is going there. I've called my doctors for an update on my medication list as well as where we're moving further, which I don't get any solid answers. They give me a bunch of double talk, like, we don't know. Then I'll be like, well, what testing are we going to do? Well, we'll have to check with the insurance. We're not quite sure what test we could do. Well, how about a ultrasound or a CT scan again, seeing as we haven't found anything yet? Or is there any other scans we can do? Well, we can look into that, but I'm not sure if I want to be doing that. Uh, like that bullshit. Like the insurance wouldn't allow it. When I just got off the phone with my insurance, when I needed a CT scan of the GI, and I was in the emergency room because there was a severe pain and a severe fall where I got stuck in public without a way to move. And I was embarrassed, but I couldn't move. And somebody else called an ambulance and they needed to see why I'm stuck like that. And I was stuck like that in the hospital and I couldn't walk in the hospital on the way in or on the way out. And they're needing to do a CT scan. But they come back and let me know my GI doctor that is on maternity leave is the one who issued the cancellation of the CT scan, claiming it was unnecessary, even though I keep on asking for an appointment for this brand new GI specialist. And after talking to her over the phone on a Zoom appointment one time, she goes straight on maternity leave after I just told these people when I came to them that I need a very experienced doctor, most likely older. I don't care if it's male or female, but because I'm such a serious case and because it's very hard to understand my case sometimes, and because my mother and father gave very bad information to previous doctors, it's going to be difficult to get to the bottom of my illness. We definitely need to be on this. And they gave me a woman doctor who was pretty young. And then after one Zoom appointment, she decides to go on maternity leave. Well, if you knew you were pregnant and if the office knew you were pregnant, why are you giving the kid that has the most severe injuries the pregnant doctor? You knew that if you told me my doctor would be going on maternity leave, I would never take her. You never told me that. You never gave me a heads up that my doctor would be gone for an entire year and be raising a child. That is the stupidest thing. You get a patient saying he's in dire need, extreme pain, needing maybe a wheelchair. He can't get across traffic. He can't seem to stretch up to get a pack of cigarettes to give to his customers. He's falling down. He's having seizures in the middle of the road. And you think to give him the doctor that's going on maternity leave is the best doctor in the office to give him? No. My mother and father said so many times not to pay any attention to my illnesses that the doctors decide, oh, this kid's probably wanting attention, so let's give him the shittiest doctor so we don't have to deal with him. And that's thanks to my mother and father that happens. Every time they type in my name, my mother's and father's reports to the doctors come up. Do you think my mother and father reported the fall properly? Like for one time, I was in Algonquin, Maine. My father and mother were trying to sell their houses in Algonquin, Maine. I was missing massive amounts of school. I just missed 18 months of school, and now my mom's trying to homeschool me. We're out watching fireworks. There's a little bit of a breeze in the air, maybe only like 60 degrees and a breeze, but it's bothering me, causing a lot of pain in my back. I'm trying to watch the fireworks, which making a bang noise that's bothering me, and the lights bother me all of a sudden. Then I get a shock and I fall to the ground. I'm now on the ground, on my hands and knees in a ball, screaming in pain, covering my ears, saying, make it stop, shaking, shaking, shaking. Which my parents don't care. They say basically, can't you just shut up? What's wrong with you? What, are you being stubborn? Not really caring. Then my mother realizes, oh, something's wrong. Can't you last a little longer? I'm still screaming, seizing, shaking on the ground in pain. After a couple more minutes of me being in pain, shaking horribly, eventually we get to the car. Do you think I was brought to a doctor? Do you think they had me discuss this with a doctor? Do you think they discussed this with a neurologist? Do you think my doctor was ever told about the night I slammed to the ground from a breeze, a flashing of a light, and a loud noise put together? Do you think anybody was ever told about that night? During the overdose, when my mother gave me a bunch of medications, do you think my mother wanted to tell the doctor that I had a severe reaction from a bunch of medications that caused me to lose my eyesight and lose all ability to use my nervous system? And then, shortly after this overdose, I'm sucking on my skin, wondering what's different. Do you think that my mother properly reported any of the stuff related to her actions? No, she did not. So when I go into the doctors today or tomorrow or whenever, they don't know how to help me thanks to my mother and father's actions, what my mother was saying, and my father's actions today, his action of keeping secrets and trying to keep what my mother did to me a secret. I mean, he never once brought up at the doctor's office any of the severe health issues I was having, like bumping in the furniture and finding bleeding scabs all over your son's shins, arms, shoulders, all these bumping in the stuff. Do you think my father wanted to bring me to the doctor to discuss that being related, how it started with the overdose? After that, I started bumping in the furniture. Teachers started calling me out of class into the hallway about it. I was bumping in the stuff. My writing changed. It became harder for me to move my hand. Did we ever discuss that with a doctor? Or did my mother come up with a fantasy calling that stuff self-harming, or calling it a fantasy, or calling it made up, telling doctors it's all these made-up mental illnesses? Meanwhile, you have not discussed the bumping in the furniture. You have not discussed the overdose. You have not discussed the pills. You have not discussed the lack of education. These are the things you need to discuss with the doctors, and yet we're discussing my mother's fantasies instead. So when I go to the doctors now, they want me to discuss my now dead mother, because she drank and pilled herself to death. Now I'm supposed to discuss her fantasies at the doctors when I need treatment for a neurological disorder. So remember how hard this is. It's probably going to be the death of me. People who have my childhoods usually die by the time they're in their 30s, and I'm in my 30s now. You don't live outside freezing to death with all the different illnesses I have without getting medical treatment, being denied medical treatment thanks to mom and dad's lies. When you get set up like that, it's usually death that happens. There's not much else you can do. I'm trying everything that's legally possible and lovingly possible and with following Jesus possible that can be done to help myself and others. But as far as myself, a lot of it has to do with my father hiding my mother's actions and her secrets. I mean, for goodness sake, my mother, the day she came home from the hospital with 20% of her liver working, she went straight for the liquor cabinet and started drinking. My father hid that from her doctors in the emergency room. So still to this day, it just says liver failure. It doesn't say anything about her drinking. It doesn't say anything about her alcohol. And that's because my father was lying to try to get her on the liver transplant list, as well as lying about her drinking to try to make sure that nobody knew what was going on. But when her 20% of her liver was working, and she asked the doctors to let her come home for one day to see her family. Just let me go home. I know I'm dying, 20% of my liver's not working, I'm yellow, but let me just say goodbye to my family she was asking for. But she blew past her family, went to the liquor cabinet, and drank. First minute in the house, she's pouring a martini of all things, vodka. And she's drinking it right in front of me with 20% of her liver only working. The next day, less than 12 hours later, she's being rushed back to the emergency room, dying. Also, my father is not allowing me to visit her and telling the doctors that drinking is not involved, even though these doctors see right through it, I'm guessing, seeing as she had alcohol in her blood and system when she went back to the hospital in the morning. If you drink at 6 o'clock at night and you go back to the hospital noon the next day, you will have alcohol in your blood and urine. But my father said that she wasn't a drinker, even though she drank. He was keeping, these secrets. And now that I am needing the help I need, and I need people to pay attention to what my mother did to me, they go, oh no, your mother was an angel. She was perfect. She couldn't fucking give you those drugs. No, they say it's fantasies, your father says. So you're making it all up. Oh, yeah? How about those other teachers? How about those other doctors? How about all the medications? How about my own mother putting me ballet for a coordination issue? How about the overdose and the pills that my own mother admitted to? How about when my mother admitted to giving me extra medications as a punishment in front of my sister, my brother-in-law, and my father? I mean, are all these people sharing a fantasy? No. Fuck no. This has been going on way too long is the issue. It started at age 7 and it's been just covered up more and more and more until I die is the way they wanted to get away with it. Harm the child, try to get away. And after my mother died, everybody decided, oh, it's all over, right? Well, Zach, why are you crying at your mother's funeral? She's dead. You don't have to take any more pain. We watched her hurt you for years. She's dead now. Why are you crying? Her own grandson tells me. Her own sons tell me. Why are you crying at our mother's funeral? She's gone now. Aren't you happy? Is the type of sentiment coming from my grandson. My nephew and from my brother. You know why? Because they watched her harm people. And she possibly could have harmed Seth if I wasn't there, her grandson. It wasn't on purpose. She was mentally ill and she liked to put poisonous pills into other people. She also liked to turn good things, like her son winning a swimming medal, into bad things, like a mental illness where she needed to give drugs to her child. This is a problem because it causes a lifetime of health issues and harm to whoever she's drugging and pilling up and hurting and hitting with metal rulers and doing weird stuff to. Whoever gets the shit of that is going to be dying by the time he's in his 20s. Not only that, if she dies before coming clean, then there's nothing that can be done. You can't sue a dead woman. You can't get a dead woman to confess. You can't charge a dead woman. But if anybody was there during an overdose, like there might have been a husband sitting there while I OD'd, then something can be done. If there's witnesses and lots of people who saw her admit to things and do things she's not supposed to be doing, well, there's something that can be done at the doctors. Maybe not like suing anybody, but the doctors can help if people just tell the truth instead of hiding the truth and letting somebody suffer and die for their own mistakes. You don't do that. It's a good way, and there are what they call natural consequences. There's what God puts on you, and then there's consequences that just happen. Like if you back a dog into the corner, right? And you start kicking it with your foot, and it bites you. That's a natural consequence. Don't kick dogs in corners or it might bite. That's simple. There's natural consequences. Or if you throw a bunch of knives up in the air, don't be don't be shy when the knife gives you a cut on the head or arm. If you're going to throw sharp knives above you in a chair, if you're going to sit down in a chair and just throw knives above you, or you're going to throw knives at a crowd, don't be surprised when somebody gets hurt. Okay? Because there's natural consequences to that. Somebody's going to get a knife to the back, or a knife to the arm, or a knife to the head. You can't throw knives into a crowd and expect nobody to come over and beat the shit out of you. Hey, that knife just hit my wife. I'm going to fuck you up now. Hey, that knife just hit my adopted son. I'm going to fuck you up now. That knife just hit my younger brother. I'm going to fuck you up now. Don't throw knives in the crowds. Or that knife just hit me in the balls. I'm going to fuck you up now. There's natural consequences to actions, like spitting on somebody else. Like if you want to spit, great, but if you spit on somebody else, don't be surprised when he turns it around and knocks you in the nose, because he just saw your bodily fluids go onto his skin. Okay? Like if I was to bleed on somebody on purpose, I'm pretty sure they would beat the living shit out of me because I'm throwing my blood on him on purpose. Well, my mother poisoned me, damaged my organs for life, made it so I most likely can't have children, made it so I can never walk on a cold day ever the same again, already has caused several seizures, caused a bunch of suffering during my childhood and still today. And that suffering doesn't stop just because I get medical treatment. It's not like because my father gets me a doctor or the doctors finally start helping me, I'm going to be a normal person driving around an Escalade. I still can't drive until we're at a level of seizures and shakes where I can control my hands and legs enough to drive. So my life will still suck. I'll just be alive. I'll be able to live. But right now, the plan is for my father to still get me killed. I'm supposed to die, and then he's supposed to go on cruises and vacation after his wife poisoned a child for 15 years, hit them, beat them, trafficked them around the country, avoiding her responsibility for the crime she committed, and now he's just dumping that on them. And no matter how much proof is out there, it doesn't matter. No matter how many doctors told them about stuff, no matter how many people, let me say it this way. Every single son my mother and father had, so that's their my mother's stepson, my mother's biological son, my mother's adopted son, my mother's stepdaughter, my father's real daughter, my father's real son, my father's stepson, and my father's adopted son. And many teachers and doctors and other people alike have come up to my mother and father and said, Patricia, my mother, had something wrong. She was doing something wrong to her adopted son, and that you should look into this, or somebody should stop this, or somebody needs to stop this, or something wrong is going on. I've even heard the whole family on a Christmas occasion have to get up out of their seats and scream, Patricia, stop! After she's acting crazy about to stomp out her child, after she treated her child like a dog, and now is yelling at him to lay down, after he already laid down, now he's even flat, so flat that his body can't get any flat, and she's going to stomp on him to make him a little flat or something crazy like that. People had to constantly go, Patricia, stop! What are you doing to that child? Oh, I'm just going to beat the living shit out of him for no reason. I'm just going to give him some pills he shouldn't take. I'm just going to dose him with extra Epicac. I'm just going to give him ballet lessons. Just fucked up shit, one after another. I'm just going to stomp on him. I'm just going to beat him. I'm just going to give him a backhand. Why? He didn't do anything. Shouldn't you save that for when he steals something? Why do you do it when your grandson is here and they're playing in the corner? This is not the time to beat him with a ruler. Why don't you wait? And why on the face? Why not that ass cheek or on someplace with fat? Why are you taking a metal ruler and using it across his face? And why are you using the sharp edge? That's not a flat edge. Why are you using the sharp edge? Why is there a mark on your son? Why is it on his face? Why are you doing this for no reason? These are the questions that you should be asking. But that day, there was my father home in another room trying to ignore this. There was my nephew and her grandson crying in the kitchen because I was just ripped away out of nowhere for no reason. I wasn't doing anything wrong or anything to get a beating for. And then I was brought into the living room, bent over the side of a chair, kind of on my back, and then she whipped me back and forth in the face, and then I tried to not get hit in the face, so she hit my shoulder, and all of it with the sharp edge of a ruler. Now, she either used a metal ruler, which she used a lot of times, or she used this plastic heavy-duty thick ruler that had a nice sharp edge as well, two sharp edges instead of one. And she did not hit me on the bum. She did not hit me on the shoulders on purpose. She was aiming for the face every time she aimed for this ruler. And she would never do this in front of my father. She saved this really face stuff and all this craziness for when my father was in another room. And my father did not care enough to control his wife. She was allowed to do a lot more than hit me with the ruler. She was allowed to put so many pills and give them to me that I had to experience an overdose, and then she was allowed to refuse an ambulance when the medical professionals told her to call and get me to the emergency room. She said, "You don't know what you're talking about. Hang up the phone," and then left me there to die on a pile of newspapers. When I woke up with my nervous system changed for life, and told the doctor to help me, and asked my mother to help me, and asked my father to help me with a serious illness. My mother called it an allergy attack and took me out of the doctor's, put me in ballet, and moved me to Texas as soon as possible. This is the actions of a crazy woman trying to get away with a crime. She had no reason to want to go to Texas. My father had a reason to go to Texas, but he said no. My mother had no reason to go to Texas, but she wanted to go no matter what. She wanted to leave her friends, leave everything. She had no, her reason, what she said, was, "I need a change of scenery. So I want to move to El Paso. I need a change of scenery. I need a change of scenery," was her only reason. These are the words of somebody avoiding responsibility. And like I said, people have multiple reasons for any choice. And when you make a choice to move your whole family on the other side of the country, you have multiple reasons for doing it. More money, change of scenery, better education. But if your son is experiencing something like coordination issues, doctors are talking to you about your son losing his vision and having some mysterious allergy attack. Teachers are putting your son into things like physical therapy and speech therapy all of a sudden after this OD has happened, and teachers are bringing your son into the hallway to talk about a sudden change in his body and his movements. And this is your response to move your son to the other side of the country and drop all medical care? That's a good way to avoid the Department of Health and Human Services looking into what you did. It's a good way to stop the doctors from giving any health care to your son. It's a good way to stop the teachers from helping your son. It's a good way to put a big wedge in everything and make sure to get away with a crime.